Yeah, hi everyone. Today we have Shamila. She is the executive coach, and it's wonderful to have her here because we are going to get lots of knowledge, her wisdom about coming from her own leadership journey. So, welcome, Shamila. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, Mitlis. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's a so Shamila, like we were discussing before the podcast, when we were having discussion, our informal chat, that we had few episodes where we had a discussion about leadership coaching. So when I was speaking to you, I mean your journey was different. Obviously, everyone's journey is unique and different. So I would like to hear from you once again for this episode. Like, what made you transition into this space? When you something clicks, and when we decide, okay, I need to be moving to this path. So, what really triggered you, inspired you to be, coming to this space in this leadership coaching? If you can please share that.
Of course. Mitlis, so first of all, yeah, it's great to be here, and I'm very happy to share my journey. So I think my journey started quite typically in the way that a lot of individuals do. We kind of leave university, or we might come out into a world of work, and we take a job that is offered to us. And to speak truthfully, I think that's what happened to me. I came out of university. Many students will relate to this. I was in a lot of debt and I needed to make money very quickly. So I actually started in recruitment. So I was in recruitment and I worked in recruitment for a number of years, 2 or 3 years. And recruitment for me is a very cutthroat industry. I'm not to say that this is across the world. I'm just saying in the organization and the
Mhm.
environment that I worked in, which was in London, UK, it was a very cutthroat industry. I was working with senior level IT recruitment candidates and leaders. And I realized very quickly that I didn't want to become some of what I was seeing around me. So it is a very much a case of you start thinking of your time in very monetary terms. So am I going, is speaking to this individual going to be a good connection for me so that I can have a good hiring manager on my books that I can hire candidates for? And I realized very quickly that wasn't for me. From there, I moved into HR. So recruitment lends itself very easily to HR. And also, I was working in that space. I started up along with a business partner. I started up an organization called Ginkgo People. We are an outsourced HR consultancy specifically there for organizations who were navigating change or were preparing to navigate change. And the idea of it is that we
Mhm.
were going to talk about employee engagement. We were not going to treat people as resources, as human resources to be used up as batteries. And we were going to really engage their minds, their vision, their excitement, their motivation in order to collectively achieve some very aspirational goals. And I think I went into that and I ran that consultancy for 10 years. And it was absolutely the right space for me to be at the time. But around 8 years in, and I think this happens whenever you get into any industry or any role or any job where you start to settle. So, those first few years, you're discovering, you're developing, you're figuring out how you fit in that space. But around 8 years in, for me, I started asking myself a question. And the question was a little bit deeper than just what do I want to do? It was, what do I want my legacy to be? Am I somebody who thinks that I want my name above a door? I want my name on change that happens so that people can credit it back to me? Or is it more important for me to be impactful? And impact doesn't always require my physical presence. And Mitlesh, I think I mentioned this when we first spoke, but I very quickly realized that I could either choose to have a tangible presence in an organization and input procedures and processes and bureaucracy that could potentially be undone when I leave, or I could choose to create ripples that far outlasted my tangible presence in a space. For me, I chose the latter. And that's why I moved into executive coaching. Because when you work with leaders to challenge their mindset, to challenge the way they do things, what you do is you leave ripples in that space that that leader is moving in that far outlast the physical presence that I might have had if I was inputting systems or processes or any of those tangible things. And so for me, chose intangible impact over tangible impact. And it was absolutely the right choice for me.
Uh, this is uh, this is really empowering. Thanks for sharing this, Shamila. I mean, I have spoken to different leaders. I mean, offline, online, uh, and everybody has got their own style. So there is, I just feel anyone can leave that impact. Like, I mean, in my own journey, when I started off, because I worked as an engineer and then I took sabbatical. I have kids. My husband is here and we have a dog as well, busy life. So then when I did decided to do this transition, or I call it as calling. So it was not my decision to be coming to this space and starting Pivot Simply. But it was organic, it was happening. I needed to take action. But then uh, I face challenges as well because, like, I come from India. I have certain way of speaking. I'm in UK, you know, so accent is one of the things. I actually in initial days I faced, but I have a lot of friends. They British friends, and from Europe, and we are okay. We have a very cool conversation. It's very understanding conversation. But does it affect in leadership? Like when especially, so what's your take on this? And I know um you shared your journey as well, but coming from it's not the similar it's not I would say the similar situation, but do you think so? Does it hinder when it comes to leadership? So, and let me put it this way: any kind of when leaders, they share their vulnerabilities, okay, they share their weaknesses openly, because I think personally it's absolutely important to be very transparent, especially when you are leaving a mark. That it should make people understand that it's okay to be vulnerable, it's okay to be normal human being, because nobody's perfect. So what's your take on this, like when you, in your own leadership style, and also like what is the kind of mindset a leader must have, and does it really hinder if someone a leader or anybody share their vulnerabilities, weaknesses, and also providing solutions? And obviously I feel it's a way of empowering anybody you speak to.
Yeah, I mean, so first of all, I really sign up to the motto that you have to see it to be it. You cannot be something that you cannot see. So if I'm working as a leader, when we talk about leaders sharing vulnerability, the reason we ask them to do that isn't because it's exposing to them. And I'm going to come back to that in a second, because it is exposing, but it isn't really. And I'll explain what I mean by that. But the reason we ask leaders to share is because if I, as an employee or as a person, never see someone I look up to sharing their vulnerabilities, of course I'm going to position it as they must not have any. I'm the only one who does. Because obviously that's key, right? But the thing is, and Mitlish, this is my opinion, but my opinion is actually it's not so hard to be a leader and to show vulnerability. I think if you've positioned yourself in your life, so for now, so if I talk about myself, I feel like I've established myself as an executive coach. I've been working in this space for close to a decade now. I feel I have a really strong client base. I have a very strong network. For
Mhm.
me to show vulnerability in this space, yes, it's vulnerable and it's vulnerable to me, but honestly, it doesn't feel truly courageous because I've already got to where I want to and I'm not risking
Yeah.
anything. True vulnerability, I believe, is when we risk it all. Is when we say we don't know what the outcome will be. I don't know if I'm going to be a successful executive coach, but right now I'm going to share my vulnerability that I'm scared that I might not be. Vulnerability, I think, is an interesting word because it's been misused a lot. I think sometimes when people stand on top of a mountain and they shout, I'm scared. And yes, there is fear, but you're already on top of the mountain. Sharing your fear doesn't necessarily, and I think we have to draw as a line. The reason why we ask leaders to share is because the person coming up behind them sees that and says, if you can feel it and it's okay, then maybe it's okay for me to feel it too. And then they share. But when that individual shares,
Mhm.
it's courageously vulnerable. And I think that's really key. Vulnerability for vulnerability's sake leads us to share stories that sometimes with our audience, I think, don't land. And sometimes with our audience, don't connect. But when we share from the perspective of genuinely giving back, of genuinely giving comfort and support to the person coming up behind that mountain, who might still be finding it hard, that's when it's really impactful. And I really think it's important that we make that distinction as leaders, because I think sometimes leaders get themselves into a place, or people who have a certain level of autonomy and gravitas get themselves into a place, and they think that it's the biggest thing that they're doing, they're sharing. And I think, actually, no, because you're not risking much. I'm not risking much right now by sharing the toughness of my journey. But if I'd spoken to you 10 years ago, right, that's where I would really have been risking it, because I didn't know what the answer was. But yet we all have those moments. So, Mitlesh, for yourself, when you first pivoted and started this podcast and you didn't know where it was going to go, and you were vulnerable in that space, I high five that. That's being courageously vulnerable. Once we have established our places, it's important to remember that vulnerability is important, but it's not as courageous for us. So we shouldn't give ourselves too much kudos for it. What do you think about that, though?
Oh yeah, I just loved it when you said, like, sharing at a stage when you don't know the outcome. Like, you're just sharing everything what you're going through, your emotions, your challenges, how you're overcoming it. And especially in the online space, uh, there is a fear of judgment, there, because um, people do perceive you as somebody else, probably, that you might not be that person, right? Because online space is so limited, and
Mm.
you can't be absolutely 100% yourself in online space. Of course, you are, you can share a bit about yourself, about your journey. You can share your, like, we discuss weakness, vulnerabilities, but there is a fear of judgment, and that is the reason I think a lot of people, they hold themselves back also. If I ask this, like, for example, if I ask any question which looks simple, then the audiences, people might think that the, person is coming from, this person doesn't have probably enough knowledge about it. There's I'm just telling different things. um
Mitlesh, can I just to jump in? I agree with you so much with what you've just said. So I'm going to take a moment, actually, to be a little bit vulnerable here. I'm going to take this moment right now.
no, absolutely,
Uh,
absolutely, please, yeah.
I recently put out a LinkedIn post. It was at the beginning of this year. And I said, and in this LinkedIn post, I talk about the previous year that I've had. So 2023 from an executive coaching, building my business perspective, was a very, very great year for me. I'm very proud of how it turned out. However, it came to January the 5th and I have some big plans. So I put out this LinkedIn post and I said, I've got these big plans, and I didn't share my plans. So already I'm protecting myself. I'm being vulnerable, but I'm protecting myself. So I said, I've got these big plans and I'm feeling nervous. And I even talked, I said that I have an imposter goblin that lives rent free in my head, and rent free talks away. And my imposter goblin is very loud this month. I mean, this was January 2024. But I still, even from my established place, haven't put down what am I doing. So I'd like to say it now. My plan this year, I've never done this before, is to write a book. I have written short form copy, so I write my own LinkedIn posts, I write my own content for Forbes.com, I write for some magazines, but the longest piece of content I have ever written is 500 words. No, well, maybe close to 1,000, because I've also done my dissertation and things. So there's more there, but in the last 5 to 10 years, the longest piece of content I've written for a non-educational purpose is less than 1,000 words. This year, for 2024, by December 2024, I want to have written my first book. I don't want to complete it. So I'm just being really honest with you. And I'm scared. I'm first of all scared. I'm vulnerable because I don't know if I can do this to a standard that I want to feel proud of. I don't know if I put it out loud like I've just done now and I don't deliver it, will I come across as somebody who doesn't deliver on what I've said? But if we don't aim high, if we don't aim for the moon, will we ever land in the stars? So here's me right now on this podcast now, Mitlesh. This is my aim. And I'm really scared about it because I'm not sure I have the knowledge or the intellectual capacity or the ability to write a book. But I'm targeting myself this for this year. That's big. That is
Yeah.
me
Thanks
being
for thanks for being honest and being vulnerable, open, and this is this is like when you get that instinct or something in your mind and you just share it, it's like instantly. So this is like so good. And I could feel your energy, that excitement, coming from you. So all the
And
best.
also fear, also fear. That's also what you
Also,
can
yeah.
feel.
Yeah, that will be there 100%. And fear is an indication that you're on the right path. So it's good. It's not a bad thing. It's how we perceive. And thanks for sharing your goals. And I'm, wishing you all the best.
Thank you.
So coming to we spoke about imposter syndrome, and you said, you do share it. I mean, you do feel it. I have felt it, and you being an executive coach, and I'm myself a business coach and life transformation coach. But this is something which is very humanly possible for any human being. But then, how do you support others when you are going through your own, you know, um, imposter syndrome? How do
Yeah.
you deal with it?
So first of all, I start off with pulling back from that imposter syndrome diagnosis, and I want to explain what I mean by that, Mitlesh. You said something quite valuable at the beginning, almost at the beginning of this podcast, and you talked about your own experience as somebody who has an accent, who's in the UK, who's trying to build a business, build a network, build connections, and there was a little bit, I think. Actually, it's hard, right? When you're not the same as everybody else to try to make those connections. And I think that's something that you felt in that environment, Mitlesh. If you're feeling like it's difficult for me to connect, I don't know if I'm saying the right thing to these people. I don't know if they're necessarily connected with what I'm saying. That isn't imposter syndrome. That is your sanity speaking. Our sanity, when we are in places that are not familiar to us, and when we see no other familiar faces to us, questions us. I have this joke. An insane person says, "Everyone must be crazy because I know what I'm saying," whereas a sane person says, "Everyone must be saying I must be the one who's crazy." And so, as sane people, we look inwards for us to deal with our own problems. So, imposter syndrome is not a medical issue. It's not something that's ever been diagnosed medically. So,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people put themselves down or are told they have a problem because they have imposter syndrome, because actually they're in a place where it's unfamiliar to them. They're doing something new. They're being pushed in ways that they've never been pushed before. And on top of that, they're being told that they've got a problem because they're doing the very reasonable questioning that we do when we are in unfamiliar spaces. So I think the first thing that I do when somebody says, "I'm suffering from imposter syndrome," is I question it. I question the validity of that statement. Are you suffering from imposter syndrome? Or are you having a very reasonable and logical response to your external stimuli, to your external environment?
Mm.
And I noticed that the moment you start validating that, the moment you say, "Actually, Mitlesh, you haven't got anyone else around you who has that Indian accent. You haven't got anyone else around you who's brought up with the same culture that you have. Your journey is harder." And I want to right now validate that for you. But just because you're questioning yourself doesn't mean you're wrong. It's a process to you figuring out what your right looks like. So step into this process right now. What does figuring out your right look like in this space right now? Suddenly you see someone blossom in ways that you might not anticipate if you have just gone in and said, "Yes, you have imposter syndrome, you have a problem, let's fix your problem." So I think for me, my unique approach to this kind of situation is, first of all, I work with a lot of leaders who are doing new things in unexplored places, who are trying to achieve aspirational goals that other people around them go, "Oh, well, I haven't been able to do that, so you should be able to do that." And to those individuals, I say, "You're right. It's okay to question yourself. It's normal. But whilst you're questioning yourself, make sure you are surrounding yourself with people who see that and who see you and your capabilities, not with people who point the finger back at you and say, 'You're suffering from this. This is a problem you need to fix.'"
Yeah, I mean, having this. Thanks for sharing this, Shamila. Like, I totally agree with you. Like, having that awareness to see, like, if someone is going through this phase of feeling like an imposter, whether I can do this, whether I can help others. Um, so coming to this awareness itself is a big achievement. Because instead of thinking I'm feeling bad, I'm feeling fearful, but once you identify that it's probably I'm not feeling bad, I am feeling whether or not it could be anything, whether or not I'm worthy enough, whether or not I can deliver this, or I can really pull this, right? So coming to that awareness itself is quite empowering. So yeah, I mean, it is a great insight. In my case, actually, one thing which really helped me, you know, when I started seeing the results, like when I was talking to people and they felt that it's helping them, you know. So I always feel that everything in your life happens for a reason. So
Yes.
like, once you uh, go through certain thing, you can explain that thing. You can help others, to do that switch quite easily, rather than just learning it with your studies and framework. So experience, I stand with experience, like, so it is so empowering. So when I was getting feedback that it's helping people, then yeah, it kind of helped me. So until now, I mean, I still have my own Indian accent, which I'm proud of. uh,
Good. Good.
yeah, but then it's actually shifting many lives. So it's about the energy or intention you put it to people, towards them, and to really serve with a purpose that I'm here to help you, and this is what I've been through, or this is what I have discovered, and that is how you can do your own self discovery. So I think, yeah, I mean, these are some of the talks or labels we give it to ourselves. But then, yeah, I mean, anyone can really overcome that and embrace their higher version or their next version. So thank you for sharing this. Shamila, I happen to read about you're mentioning about the power of intrinsic motivation in executive leadership. Would you share something about it? This is really interesting. So I would like to hear from you, if you can share something about this. What is the importance of that in leadership?
For me, intrinsic motivation, and it's not just in leadership, I think it's as a person. Intrinsic motivation is something that comes from within you. It's not something that comes from outside of you. And what I mean by that is
Yeah.
there's people think the purpose or having something to do is the same as purpose. And actually they're very not. They're very, very different. Having something to do is a job that you may go to every day. Having something to do is a home that you may have to look after. Having something to do is a child you may have to raise. Having something to do might be an errand that you have to run. And we can do things, and we can do things all day long. And this is no knock to people who do things. However, one of the things that I've realized is that when somebody has intrinsic motivation, the way that they are able to connect to their higher self completely changes. I want to explain by that from a very obvious example. If I talk about a sibling relationship or a parent, let's talk about a parenting relationship, right? So as parents, our children require everyday care and everyday amusement. And I'm sure many parents relate to this, with the questions that never stop and the requests that always need to be heard. And as a parent, when you're going through the everyday,
Mhm.
it can seem you're just going from errand to job to errand to job to errand to job. You're just basically doing things. Yeah, every now and then when I take a pause between doing stuff and go, why do I want to be a parent? What would I want my child to say about me in 18 years from now? Or my favorite one when I'm having a really tough day is just leaving the room for a minute and imagining myself 18 years from now or 20 years from now having been granted 1 minute back in this moment that I'm in right now that I'm absolutely hating. I've been granted, I'm 20 years from now, and I can close my eyes and do it right now. And I've been granted an opportunity to just step into this moment for 1 minute. What would I do differently right now? And I've used this as a tool on the days that I'm finding being a parent, being a partner, being an employee, being an entrepreneur, being a business owner very, very hard. 18 years from now, 20 years from now, I've been given this one moment. I only have 1 minute to step into this, and I will then go back to my life 20 years in the future again. What would I do differently right now? Miklesh, to me, that thing that I'm doing right there is connecting back to my higher purpose, to my intrinsic motivation, to what really drives me beyond my everyday. And I think when we all seek to do the work of finding our higher purpose, we honor not just the people around us, but I feel like I honor myself the best. And in that moment, although I even think about it, I think about it to myself as a minute. I've just been granted a minute. Actually, the ripple of that moment for me lasts the whole day, because I'll keep thinking that I've just come back. It's 20 years from now, but I've just come back for this one day. What does it mean for me? And so intrinsic motivation is that moment where you tap into your real purpose, into something that's higher than the jobs that you do every day, than the moments that you have every day. It's connecting you with something bigger and deeper than that. And when we connect to that, I think the things that I can tell you now that as a parent, when I connect to that, I drop into a level of patience and understanding and kindness. For me, that in an everyday moment without that visualization, I find it hard to access. And I don't know if I'm the first parent to say that, but patience is sometimes not so within my grasp. And so when I give myself that moment to really visualize that, I serve myself better. I think I serve my family better. And man, that brings me joy.
Yeah, like it's really I could relate to that, Shamila, totally, as a parent, actually. Yeah, because we do get busy with the everyday nitty gritty and routine. Sometimes some high and some low moments, but then staying connecting to your true purpose, purpose of life, or probably when you decide to become a parent, that itself is a purpose of a parent. So what is that thing? And actually, it's interesting. Few days back, I was having a conversation with my husband, and we were actually discussing that uh, only these many years are there. After that, kids, they go to university. Then it won't be the same environment, same scene. It'll be totally different, right? Whereas as parent, as a working woman or dad as well, we do get busy with so many things which we think we have to put, you know we have to follow it through. We So life do get it does get harder sometimes, but then, like you said, staying connecting to your true purpose, higher self, and so that it doesn't really hinder with your mindset, with your emotions. I mean, you can actually easily come out of it once you are aware of it, that it's not you are the one who's driving your life, and you can always shift your gear. You are on the driving seat. Yeah,
Yeah.
great.
And so much of that is around that reframing piece, though, as well. Because Mitlesh, from my personal experience, my little ones were little. When it's that sleepless stage, when you're not sleeping more than 2 or 3 hours a night, and you have well-meaning people, and they mean well, but they say, "Oh, this stage will pass so quickly." And I found myself, I had a baby that didn't sleep. I found myself when I was told that going, where? When will that moment happen? And so the difference I think when I think of intrinsic motivation is right there, right?
Yeah.
An external person telling me this is going to pass quite quickly. I know logically that it's true, but man, sometimes Mitlesh, I want to also punch that person in the face. It's like right now I'm so tired. So for me, that external piece didn't work for me. But when I did the reframing for myself, when I step outside of a room, physically step outside of it, when I close my eyes, I take a few deep breaths, I take a minute to really visualize my life 20 years from now. It's 20 years from now. It's
Hmm.
20 years. And I've just come back. That reframing piece also brings back to me why it's coming from within me to go, I can be better than what I'm being right now. And it's so much different to an external person saying, this too shall pass, which is absolutely truthful. But the difference to me is that intrinsic motivation piece. I can only punch myself in the face if I don't like my messaging. There's nobody else there to punish. And so intrinsic motivation comes from a deeper understanding with yourself to say, I need to go through this if I want that. Okay, I'm going to do it. And
Hmm.
that's That is a really key difference. I mean, Mitlesh, please make me feel comfortable. Did you also get told this? Did you also sometimes think, but I don't believe it will pass, even though I know it will?
No, I can. Yeah, I know what you're saying, and especially as a mother, like I said, as a parent, it's not easy because sometimes when you are having a probably a tough day at work, probably there are many things, and especially like with probably within the family, like my I had a very tough year actually. My When I was starting Pivot Simply, my dad was unwell. Then I
Mm,
have kids. My husband actually he touch wood, he really supports
yeah.
But then as a parent, as a mother, as a father also, and I don't just speak for mother. I know mothers, they have their own emotions and connect very different from dad. Um, but then we also simply can't ignore what they do as well. So um, you have to wear many hats. And when you wear certain hat, you manage certain responsibility, you have to also manage your own emotions, right? I would like to ask from you, Shamila, how do you set your boundaries? Like, what mindset do you follow, that you how do you set your emotional boundaries, with in your personal and professional life? So if you can please share that.
Yeah, of course. Setting boundaries is hard. And I think for me, once again, I think it goes back to connecting with my higher purpose. And I find it difficult to say no for the sake of saying no. I think a lot of people are like this, and we feel like we have to justify our no. But I feel that when I'm really connected with what I want to achieve, when I'm really connected with the legacy that I want to leave in 20 years' time, I find it easier to say no because I'm not saying no for the sake of no. I'm saying no, coming from a place of knowing that this is going to distract me. I have a focus here. This is where I'm trying to get to. And so, because of that, I can be very honest about my no as well. So I can say, this, I'm not doing this, or I'm not going to get engaged with this project, or I'm not going to get involved with this opportunity because this isn't where I'm heading right now. And I feel like I have that clarity. And that's the other piece when we talk about purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we don't have purpose, it feels difficult to say no. And it feels difficult to say no because I genuinely believe that as human beings, we want to be people that say yes. We want to be people that get involved. We want to be people that support everybody. We want to give as much as we can. I do think the majority of people who are good people are like that. And so it, saying no isn't bad. But when you say yes without understanding why you're saying yes, that is bad. And so, once again, that reframing piece really helped me honor what I need. If I say yes to something that doesn't connect with my higher purpose, I know that midway through that project, that action, that process, I'm going to become resentful. When I become resentful, I don't become the person I'm proud of. So I'm going to give myself an opportunity to continue to be the person I want to be proud of by not pushing myself or pulling myself too thin. Suddenly it feels really easy to say no.
Hmm. Oh, that's very deep. Like you, so really staying connected to yourself, like whatever decision you're taking, whatever things you're following through, and like
Well, it's
you
not
speaking
necessarily
about.
sticking with the decision because that's also it's about doing the work to have clarity. I mean, I'm also somebody who says fail quickly. So if you're going to say just to somebody, you should say
Yeah,
no to,
yeah, yeah.
just change your mind quickly, fail quickly so you can move on. Don't beat yourself up. But actually, that staying connected to your higher purpose means before you start saying yes to anything or no to anything, do the work that you need to do to understand what drives you. That's the intrinsic motivation piece. Once you have clarity on that, you'll find that you don't actually have to make decisions. The
Mm-hmm.
right answer will come to you because I've done that intrinsic motivation piece first. What is my purpose? What is it driving me? How is it connected to me? But when you haven't done that work or we've missed a few of those steps, then yeah, it does. Once again, you kind of, every decision doesn't feel organic. It doesn't feel holistic. It feels like I have to rethink through everything to think through all my steps. That's actually a sign that you need to go back and go, what's my purpose again? How am I going to intrinsically motivate myself to achieve that outcome, to deliver on that purpose? Okay, so based on that, is there even a decision to be made here?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people who are people pleasers, this advice would really help when you don't really own your own time. There was a time I went through this for a very long time when you are there for everybody except you don't prioritize yourself in your own life, and there are many people out there, and I say a lot of people who are very generous, kind, and like very especially empath. They just feel, no, I need to help others. Like I was speaking to a lady a few days back, and so I also so I do some inner work with my clients, and when I said something to her, like um, she just said, how do you know? And it was about that she actually she was giving out her energy so much to others so that they she can help them, and that comes from her being generous, and she's an empath, and she said, you are right, because I am a carer and I always prioritize other people first, because I don't prioritize myself. So when someone don't prioritize themselves, always being there for others for a longer run, I think it doesn't really help. I mean, we had a very good conversation then, and like she said, it's her purpose to be serving others, but then also taking care of yourself, taking care of having your own emotional boundaries, and having that self-care, self-compassion, I think it's very important.
I think
This is
also,
when I yeah, this is when I realized I made a shift in my life, because otherwise it just gets impossible for a mother. I mean, I can just say that you just then there'll be
yeah,
a time when there'll be uh, definitely, if someone is not taking care of themselves, and I can just go on and on say about this thing, self care, understand your self worth, and have that self compassion. And I make a lot of content on this, especially, and I think more and more people get aware of it and take care of themselves
I think it's
while
I
taking
think
care of
it's
others.
tough. I'm really relating to what you're saying as a woman, especially an Asian woman, because and this is my perspective again from the life that I've lived and the experiences that I've had. I never saw an older Asian woman who's my elder, my mum, whether it's my mum's sisters, whether it's my dad's sister. I never saw Asian women in my community prioritize themselves, their well-being, or their mental health. I never saw that. And I also became so conditioned because I didn't see that, is that I became conditioned to believe that when I did see it, so I saw it in other cultures, I saw other women in other cultures looking after themselves, supporting their mental health, supporting their well-being. I became so judgmental of that because I didn't create that space for my female elders that I called it selfish. And I want to be, once again, this is me being vulnerable in my space. I called it selfish. And I called it selfish because I had a fundamental misunderstanding of what it is to be caring. We often talk about this idea of care. And I think it's because we position women as mothers. Not all women have the opportunity to become mothers, and yet every single one of them are lumbered with this thing of caring and nurturing. But truly, can you anyone really truly care or nurture for others if they have not done so for themselves? And can they give themselves that title that you are a carer if you have not done that? So there is another title for it. It's called martyrdom. We don't often like that word and pull away from that word. But when you give to somebody else without any thought for yourself, you are not even thinking about how to give sustainably. You're simply thinking or not thinking, you're behaving in a way that you have been conditioned. The moment so I have a son, my son is 5. One of the most valuable and important things I can show him as a mother and as a woman is that I have an expectation to take care of myself and I deliver on that expectation. And I know, and I feel confident saying this, that I'm raising a son who will soon become a man who will understand that irrespective of what your sexual organs are, Taking care of yourself is a right that we have, and it's something we owe to ourselves before we can give it to anybody else. I think our parents got a lot of things right, but I personally believe that in this space there is a gap here, and it's particularly a gap that affects, I believe, Asian women. And it's that idea where we give and give and give in a way that is unsustainable. And all we do is continue the generational trauma. And at some point, and Mithilesh, I want to high five you, because here is a moment for us to say, no, enough. I'm not going to expect that from my sons and daughters. And the only way we can do that is we stop talking about it and we start doing it. Because I don't know about you, my children don't really listen to what I've got to say, but they watch what I do every day.
Yeah, I like kids, they don't learn from your words, they learn from actions. Humans, they learn from actions, behaviors. So yes, whatever we can say, do this, do that, but if as parents, if we don't follow, they won't get it. Like, but yeah, well done, Shamila. Like, really, you know, creating that space, that vision for your kids, that is, and breaking the norms. It doesn't come easy. It's very hard, because first of all, you would be seen as alien, actually, someone who's like, not like you said, someone who's probably more. A lot of people think it's selfish that you
Yeah,
are
like I did.
just thinking
Like I did.
about yourself.
Mm,
Like I speak to both, like Asian women and British women. Um, and I have seen this in both women. I mean, it's not just limited to Asian women. I have spoken to British women who are much older, like 60-year-old women, and that's where she had first time she had a realization that she need to be taking care of herself. That others' voice is not my voice. You know,
yeah.
others. Yeah, this is the realization when I heard from a 60-year-old woman. I was like, wow. So that is an awakening moment for me also then, because uh, this is a common thing, and it's not just about women or any particular race, or I am seeing this pattern in like many people, and it's not just limited to age also. So
I think as I've got older, I've definitely realized that. But I think for me, when especially when I was growing up and with this community that I was with, actually I wasn't seeing a lot of that. I was just seeing it as because I was surrounded by Asians, right? And so in the community that I was in, it was othered. So what I mean by that is if somebody outside the community was seen to take care of themselves, it was like, oh well, that's what they do, and it's selfish, but it's not what we do. And so for me, I turned 18, I went to university, my world opened up a little. And that's where I was able to challenge some of my thinking with Lesh. But absolutely, I agree with you. It's not a condition that's one person or one demographic. But at the same time, when I was growing up, I definitely used it as a way to other people. So I was like, oh, we don't do that, but they do that. And so actually, it was that realization that we all need to nurture ourselves in the same way. It doesn't matter where you come from, who you are, what your religion is, whether you're male or female, whether you're a parent or not a parent, whether you're single or not single.
hmm. Yeah.
All need to do the self-care. That was for me, that was my big realization. Whereas I think I didn't have that in my head. If you had asked me maybe, at age 15, I would have said to you, well, when I become a parent, I'm just going to be I probably did really buy into that all my time should be towards my children. And of course, like as a 15-year-old, because I never saw anything else. And it was only when I became 18 and 20 and 30 and that 40 that I realized I have to change my dialogue. My inner narrative needs to change. If my outs I need it to change if I'm going to have my external stimuli change. I need to change my narrative here. So absolutely the work started with me, and it wasn't the community telling me, it was how I made a judgment based on what I was seeing, which is why I'm so committed to not bothering to say anything, but to show a different way. That's why I'm so committed to it.
Yeah, and like since you got this lesson from your own awareness, from your own experience, it has a, like, a deeper meaning to you, irrespective of what others say about it or what others would suggest you would give opinion. Like But now you're very clear about about your vision. And uh, and that's why I say, someone who's speaking from experience, like, it really helps to connect. For us personally, when I moved to London, that is when I saw different kind of people. I That's when I started to change, because I have been an empath, giver, not speaking, even not speaking about my own requirements. I used to be that introvert child. So for me, yeah, it came as a blessing. It was not easy, very, very challenging, because you are changing your generational patterns. It doesn't mean that you don't love people. I absolutely love my family, my grandparents, everybody. But then uh, change is something which is hard for it's hard to implement. But then it's the thing, I think everyone should be going towards, and that's the reason. Again, coming back to pivot simply, that's why I said, no, this is important. One has to pivot. There is no other way. This is a human life. You have to evolve. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing this. We have a final question here, Shamila, and actually, I wanted to know about what's your leadership style, and how do you uh, and what is that one word, or something, your insights would you share with others who would like to become leader in any industry at some point of time in their life? So from your own journey experience, if you can share some light with them. And first of all, like, what's your leadership style? Like, if I say, like, that there would be something different from others. So would you like to share?
Yeah, of course. The first thing I want to say is I think our expectations of leadership have shifted over the last 20 years, Mitlesh. If I think about leaders 20 years ago, we had leaders who knew everything, right? So they were like, I know the most. I am the leader. Let me go step out my battleship and take every enemy on. I know the most out of everybody in this group. And I think what's happened in the last 20 years, when we look at organizations like Facebook, when we look at Twitter, when we look at Instagram, these organizations didn't exist 20 years ago. And if 20 years ago they didn't exist, that means the leaders of these organizations have been put into environments which are currently referred to as VUCA environments. So volatile, they're unpredictable, they're complex, and they're ambiguous. And we don't know what the business or economic landscape, opportunistic landscape looks like in these spaces. And so, because of that, the first thing that we need to realize is our understanding of what a leader is has shifted in the last 20 years. It's shifted from being somebody who always knows the answer to being somebody who can lead others to an answer that was potentially unexplored and undiscovered by anybody else. So for the role of our leaders has changed, and we are no longer, and I talk about this with my partner and with our little ones, because our children are no longer going to be sort of looked up to because of what they know. Every child currently in the world has opened the opportunity, however powered it might be, to access a mobile phone, look at that mobile phone and access any amount of data or information they want. You can find out when the Egyptian pyramids were built. You can find knowing information is no longer valuable. But our ability to critically analyze the information that we're given, that is a key ability that AI even is not going to be able to replicate. So when we talk about leaders of today, what we want is people who are going to lead us by inspiring us, by engaging with us, and by connecting with our intrinsic motivation in order to achieve great things. So when I talk about my leadership style, I feel that I want to, and I'm driven to be a very modern leader. And by that, I mean, I'm not somebody who knows everything. And I'm very happy to say that. I'm somebody who has worked really, 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 really hard at asking the right questions at the right time in order to open up the opportunistic horizon of my clients. That's the kind of leader I am. I'm never going to be the sort of person who has all the answers. But can I potentially lead you there by speaking to your heart and your soul, by connecting with what really matters to you? 100%. I'm that leader, and I'm really proud of that.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, this is quite empowering. And like you said, it's and I truly believe in that. And I think, and it's true that nobody's perfect. So, I mean, even though we, um, uh, I mean, it's not only entirely only for the leaders. Like, again, I find it as label actually, because a mother who's setting a vision for her kids, helping them to evolve, and she's a leader. So yeah, I mean, embracing your imperfections. Like, I'm not perfect, and I'm growing, I'm learning, and this is what I can share, and this is what helped me. It'll help you as well. So this is something. I mean, in fact, I stand by as well. So I could totally relate to what you are, what you are sharing, Shamila. um, and this is where people really connect, and they know that it's coming from your genuine space. Like, when you're sharing this, it is something you really stand for. So even though the motivation is not to create an impact, it's just that they feel, okay, this is something, I see this person different than the crowd. So thank you so much. I mean, I have personally learned a lot from this episode today, Shamila. It was it was great having you, even though we decided for certain time, and the conversation was so organic, and I truly loved it. So thank you so much.